Welcome to Flash Core, your sharpest source for daily headlines and deep dives. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stay ahead of the curve. In a move that has sent shockwaves through the international community, an Israeli airstrike struck the heart of Doha, Qatar, igniting a geopolitical crisis that few could have anticipated. The world watched in disbelief as images of destruction and chaos emerged from a city previously considered a safe distance from the region's most volatile conflicts. This unprecedented event has not only raised immediate humanitarian concerns, but has also set the stage for a complex diplomatic standoff with far-reaching consequences. According to Israeli officials, the operation was meticulously planned to target senior Hamas leaders believed to be orchestrating violent attacks from within Qatari borders. Israel claims these individuals were responsible for a series of recent escalations, and that their presence in Doha posed a direct threat to regional security. The Israeli government has defended its actions as a necessary measure to protect its citizens and prevent further violence, emphasizing the intelligence that led to the strike. What makes this incident particularly significant is its location. Doha is far removed from the traditional flashpoints of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, such as Gaza or the West Bank. The strike has therefore triggered intense debate about the sanctity of national borders, the limits of military action, and the responsibilities of nations in upholding international law. Diplomats and world leaders have convened emergency meetings, urgently discussing the implications for sovereignty and the potential for wider regional instability. The United States, a key ally to both Israel and Qatar, has found itself in a delicate position. U.S. officials claim they provided advance warning to Qatari authorities, suggesting that they were aware of Israel's intentions and attempted to mediate or at least prevent a diplomatic disaster. This assertion, if true, would indicate a level of coordination and foreknowledge that complicates the narrative and raises questions about the transparency of international alliances. However, Qatari officials have vehemently denied receiving any such warning. In a strongly worded statement, Qatar condemned the airstrike as a blatant violation of its sovereignty and an unacceptable breach of international norms. The Qatari government has demanded a full investigation and immediate accountability, insisting that it was blindsided by the attack and that its trust in its allies has been severely undermined. This stark contradiction between the accounts of the United States and Qatar has only deepened the crisis. As media outlets and analysts around the world dissect the conflicting narratives, the credibility of all parties involved is being called into question. The lack of clear, verifiable information has fueled speculation and mistrust, making it even harder for diplomatic channels to function effectively. At the heart of the dispute lies a fundamental issue of trust. The incident has exposed underlying tensions in the relationships between the United States, Israel, and Qatar, straining alliances that are crucial for maintaining stability in the Middle East. High-level meetings have been marked by tension and uncertainty, as each side seeks to protect its interests while avoiding further escalation. The question of what information was shared and with whom before the strike remains a central mystery. Behind closed doors, diplomats are scrambling to piece together the timeline and determine who knew what and when. The lack of transparency has only heightened suspicions and made it more difficult to find a path toward resolution. This incident has laid bare the fragility of diplomatic ties in a region already beset by conflict and mistrust. The stakes are enormous, not just for the countries directly involved, but for the broader international community, which relies on stable alliances to manage crises and prevent the spread of violence. As the world watches events unfold, uncertainty prevails. Citizens across the Middle East and beyond are glued to their screens, searching for answers and hoping for a peaceful resolution. The truth behind the strike remains elusive, and the potential for further escalation looms large. With alliances tested and regional stability hanging in the balance, the outcome of this crisis will shape the future of Middle Eastern diplomacy for years to come. The world waits, holding its breath, as leaders grapple with the core of the dispute. In a move that has sent shockwaves across the region, Israel has launched a targeted airstrike in Doha, claiming its primary objective was to eliminate high-ranking Hamas leaders believed to be operating from the Qatari capital. Israeli officials argue that this operation was not only justified but essential for the nation's security, citing credible intelligence that pointed to imminent threats against Israeli civilians. The airstrike, they say, was a direct response to ongoing attacks and a necessary step to dismantle what they describe as a growing network of terror. President Isaac Herzog addressed the nation and the world, emphasizing that Israel's actions were a matter of self-defense. He stated that the government had exhausted all diplomatic channels before resorting to military action, and insisted that the strike was carried out with precision to minimize civilian casualties. Herzog's message was clear: Israel will not hesitate to act decisively when its security is at stake. Despite Israel's justification, the international community has reacted with alarm. Human rights organizations and several world leaders have condemned the strike, arguing that it constitutes a violation of international law and sets a dangerous precedent for cross-border military actions. Protests have erupted in major cities, and legal experts are calling for an urgent investigation into the legality of Israel's actions. Qatar's response has been swift and unequivocal. Government officials have denounced the airstrike as a grave violation of their national sovereignty and an unacceptable breach of international norms. The Qatari leadership has called for an emergency session of the Arab League and demanded that the United Nations take immediate action to hold Israel accountable. The diplomatic fallout has been immediate and severe. Tensions have escalated to the point where a scheduled United Nations Security Council meeting was abruptly postponed, as member states struggle to reach a consensus on how to address the crisis. Headlines around the world are now focused on the growing rift between Israel and Qatar, and the broader implications for Middle Eastern diplomacy. Qatar's long-standing role as a mediator in regional conflicts is now in jeopardy. The airstrike has strained its already fragile relationship with Israel, casting doubt on future cooperation and peace initiatives. Diplomatic channels remain open, but the atmosphere is tense, with both sides trading accusations and warnings. Through this operation, Israel is sending a powerful message to its adversaries and the world. Its military reach extends far beyond its borders, and it is willing to take bold action to protect its interests, regardless of international criticism. In response, Qatar has issued a formal diplomatic protest, warning that such actions will have far-reaching consequences for bilateral relations and regional stability. The Qatari Foreign Ministry has called for restraint but also made it clear that it will not tolerate further violations of its sovereignty. The incident is now testing the strength of Israel's alliances and its broader diplomatic strategies. Allies are being forced to choose sides, and long-standing partnerships are being put to the test as the world grapples with the fallout from this unprecedented event. As the world watches events unfold in real time, anxiety and uncertainty grip the streets of Doha and beyond. International journalists are reporting live from the scene, capturing the tense atmosphere and the growing calls for de-escalation from citizens and leaders alike. With regional stability hanging in the balance, the stakes could not be higher. The coming days will be critical as leaders on all sides search for a path to peace and work to prevent the crisis from spiraling into a wider conflict. The Israeli strike in Doha resulted in 6 deaths, sparking global criticism. Qatar calls for a unified international response to Israeli aggression. Hamas claims its leaders survived, questioning the strike's effectiveness. Former President Trump suggests the U.S. warned Qatar, adding to the confusion. Conflicting narratives create uncertainty, complicating diplomatic efforts. Doha's reputation as a neutral ground is shattered. The search for truth continues amid fractured international relations. The path forward remains uncertain, with tensions high. The international community is gripped by a wave of concern and uncertainty in the immediate aftermath of the Doha strike. Around the world, governments, diplomats, and citizens alike are watching closely, aware that the repercussions of this event could extend far beyond the borders of Qatar. The United Nations, as the primary forum for global diplomacy, becomes a focal point for urgent discussions and emergency meetings. News outlets broadcast images of tense faces and hurried consultations, capturing the gravity of the moment. Leaders from every continent express their fears that the strike could ignite a much larger regional conflict, potentially drawing in neighboring countries and destabilizing the already fragile balance in the Middle East. Statements from heads of state and foreign ministers emphasize the need for restraint, while behind closed doors, diplomatic channels buzz with activity as governments seek to assess the situation and coordinate their responses. The UN Security Council, recognizing the urgency, schedules a high-level meeting to address the crisis. However, the session is delayed, as Qatar's Prime Minister prepares to present his nation's case, highlighting the complexities and sensitivities involved. Diplomats from around the world gather in the hallways, exchanging updates and strategizing their next moves. The incident puts traditional alliances and diplomatic strategies to the test. Long-standing partnerships are strained as countries weigh their national interests against the demands of international law and humanitarian concerns. Behind the scenes, negotiators work tirelessly to prevent the situation from spiraling out of control. The United States and its Western allies find themselves under intense pressure. On one hand, they are expected to support Israel, a key partner in the region. On the other, they face mounting global condemnation and calls for accountability. Balancing these competing demands proves to be a delicate and challenging task, as every statement and action is scrutinized by the international community. The Doha strike acts as a catalyst, forcing countries to clarify their positions and take a stand. Some nations call for immediate ceasefires and humanitarian aid, while others urge caution and further investigation. The world's attention is fixed on the United Nations, where every vote and resolution carries significant weight. As journalists report live updates and citizens gather in public spaces to watch the unfolding news, there is a palpable sense of anticipation. The world waits to see if a unified approach can be forged to de-escalate the crisis and prevent further violence. Yet, deep divisions among member states challenge every effort to find common ground. Disagreements over responsibility, appropriate responses, and long-term solutions threaten to derail diplomatic progress. The stakes could not be higher. With regional stability hanging in the balance, the decisions made in these critical moments will shape the future of the Middle East and perhaps the world for years to come. In London, tensions rise between Israeli President Herzog and UK Prime Minister Starmer. Their discussion on Israeli airstrikes reveals strain on UK-Israel relations. Starmer faces criticism at home for hosting Herzog amid the conflict. The meeting highlights the sensitive topic of recognizing a Palestinian state. Herzog warns against unilateral recognition, fearing it harms peace prospects. The UK considers recognition to advance a two-state solution. The meeting illustrates the diplomatic challenges facing Israel's allies. The stakes are high, with regional stability at risk. Iran uses the Doha strike to highlight Israeli aggression. Iran aims to rally regional support against Israel. Canada re-examines its relationship with Israel, signaling discomfort. Iran and Canada's actions illustrate the conflict's global ripple effects. The world becomes more polarized, with nations reassessing positions. The conflict reshapes alliances and creates new fault lines. The stakes are high, with regional stability at risk. Civilians bear the brunt of the conflict, with heavy casualties in Gaza. Israeli operations result in significant deaths, fueling a humanitarian crisis. In Yemen, Israeli airstrikes kill civilians, raising questions about precision. International outrage grows over civilian casualties. Humanitarian organizations call for protection and an end to violence. The focus remains on the suffering of ordinary people. The urgent need for a ceasefire becomes critical. The stakes are high, with regional stability at risk. Western nations debate recognizing a Palestinian state amid escalating violence. Proponents see it as a step toward a two-state solution. Israel and the US oppose unilateral recognition, fearing it harms peace prospects. The US remains committed to a negotiated two-state solution. The debate reveals a split within the Western Bloc. Nations see recognition as a step toward justice or a premature action. The diplomatic clash adds complexity to the situation. The path to resolution remains uncertain. The stakes are high, with regional stability at risk. Recent events cast a shadow over the Middle East's future. The Doha strike complicates ceasefire negotiations in Gaza. Concerns grow that the conflict could spiral into a wider regional war. Israel's military actions increase the risk of miscalculation and retaliation. The path forward is unclear, with the region on edge. The international community struggles to de-escalate the crisis. Every action has far-reaching consequences. The hope for peace fades as tensions rise. The stakes are high, with regional stability at risk.